Welcome to this week's edition of Media Insider, the podcast. I'm Shane Curry, the New Zealand Herald Editor-at-Large, and this week we speak to Heather du Plessis-Allan, the drive time host of News Talk ZB. Heather's fresh off winning the Sir Paul Holmes Broadcaster of the Year award. We talk to her about that special moment and her time in broadcasting. We also talk to her about interviewing politicians from all sides of the political divide and just how they are treating media at the moment. Heather's got a very illustrious and storied career in media and a lot to look forward to. We talk to her about just what some of her goals are and whether she's aiming for that hot seat of breakfast at News Talk ZB. Here's Heather. Heather du Plessis-Allan.
Shane Curry.
Thank you so much for joining us.
You're more than welcome.
On the Media Insider podcast. You're fresh from being named Sir Paul Holmes Broadcaster of the Year. What?
Wild, eh?
Wild, but you weren't there for it.
No, because I was working, because you don't get a heads up, right? So I was doing my job. It's awkward for the people who do the drive shows, and especially I think our one, because our one goes till 7, so it's really hard for us to be at the awards and yeah, who wants to be the guy that takes the day off and sits there waiting for an award?
Well, I was very surprised. I mean, it does play to your work ethic. We can talk about that shortly. So you found out on air, or when you came?
No, Shane. What happened was, so I got a text so the bosses said, look, in case you win an award, can you just, can somebody do a speech for you? So I said, sure. So while I was on air, I sent a few texts, just a few notes to the German, the producer, the executive producer, Laura Beatty. And I sent it to her and I said, look, just say this. And then, so she texted me back and she goes, sorry, you didn't get it. You got pipped by Mike Hosking. And I was like, well, I mean, if you're going to lose to someone, it's not like the man's amazing. So I sort of settled in with that. It was fine. And then at the end, I left the studio to join them at the after party, and I was just doing a detour through the newsroom past Simon Wilson's desk on my way to the bathroom, and some young chap, I don't know who it was, came up to me with a live, a stream.
A live stream?
A live stream.
The awards. Right.
And said, look at this. And I was like, oh yeah, it was, and I just thought he was showing me that I had been a finalist earlier, and I was like, well, so what, and then it dawned on me, and that was how I found out. So I went down and obviously was very excited, and Simon was gracious and said, well done, probably thinking, what the actual. And then I went down to the after party, and because my husband had put the kids to bed, he hadn't gone to the awards either, and he'd just gone straight to the after party. So we were literally the first two people there, and he was like, I'm really sorry that you didn't win.
Oh, so he didn't know?
No. And so I said to him, oh my gosh, has no one told you either? And so, yeah, that's how the pair of us found out.
Incredible. What does it mean for you?
Oh man, I'll tell you what.
Have you reflected on it?
Not like, when do you have time as a mother of a 5-month-old to reflect on anything, right? So I don't think I've really, to be honest, stopped and thought about it and thought about how big it is. And part of why I don't want to do that is because I just can't. I still cannot believe it. I'm still kind of going through the emotions of thinking, like, they actually listen to the show. Who are these people who've, anyway, so I'm still processing it.
Did you know Holmes?
I did.
Did you work with him, or
No.
did you know him more socially?
I knew him more socially because, of course, he and my husband were contemporaries. Frenemies, I would sort of describe them as. Like, they would often get drunk and then abuse each other. And Barry would often say to him, you're nothing more than a disc jockey. And he would say, who are you, Larry Soper? That's how the conversation, you're nobody. It would go like that. So anyway, that's how I knew Paul, just as kind of like a +1 myself. But he was very, very gracious. He was that's what made him him, right? Was his warmth. And he genuinely always had time. I felt personally, it was my experience, was that he always had time to sit down and kind of ask you how things were going and give you some helpful tips. And Kerry Woodham said to me the other day, that is the award that is the most special because it is named after him, because he means so much to so many people in their own ways. So
yeah. Totally. And that advice that he gave, do you find that other talent? Are you doing that for others now? Is that something that you kind of help others with, or that you still receive?
I guess we all want to think that about ourselves, that we're generous with our time and our compliments and our criticism and feedback. So yeah, I would obviously say that. I would like to think that I am passing on some stuff to the younger members of our team. without any fear of them, because they're so far, they're so much younger. I'm like, you won't take my job just yet, but if you do, I'm not going to give you any more help.
Hang on, you're not that old. I mean, that's one of the amazing things about you. You've only just turned 40, really, in the last 12 months.
Yes.
To achieve this
Shane,
award.
that doesn't feel that old to you, but when you were 20, 41 was old.
40 was old.
It's old.
I have to,
I'm
at
over
that
the
time,
hill.
but no.
Like, I should have died 150 years ago. I'd already be dead.
But in the scheme of things, you've still got another 20 years ahead, and
possibly, yeah.
Maybe now's a good time. Let's talk about goals that you actually are striving for in broadcasting. Is there something that you're going for? Is the breakfast show something that's a traditional kind of route from here?
Look, completely honestly with you, like I said, I haven't got any time to think about anything, to even process something which happened 3 or 4 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago or whatever. I just don't have time. So I don't have time right now to think about what my goals are and what I'm just I'm just trying to get through feeding the baby solids. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is what's going on. So at the moment, I think, in all honesty, Shane, and I'm not trying to be evasive at all, although it will seem like that to you, I think that right now I have got the best gig on radio. If you're gonna do a show on radio, right? Hosking's waking up at 2:30 or something like awful like that. I'm waking up at a reasonable hour. I'm going to bed at a reasonable hour. I get to see my kids during the day. I get to, do a daytime shift. So I'm pretty blessed. And I also get all the politics of the day and all. It's like there's a real pace to it and a lot of kind of fun. So at the moment, I am very happy where I am. If they need me to do something else in the company, I will do something else for them in the company. It's not my decision. It's not anything I'm considering at the minute.
You're happy being the member for Tauranga? in a way.
I am. I'm happy being the member for Drive.
Yeah. I mean, and you've stamped your mark on the Drive show now for the best part of 6 years. Longer. Does it feel that long?
No, it feels like, don't you feel like that? Sometimes you're like, where did that year go? It's so quick. And also, Shane, because it takes you so long to master something like this, right? That when you feel like, oh, I think I can actually do this now, 5 years have passed, And now I'm like, okay, now let's do it.
Well, you talk about politics, and I know your love of politics stems from an early age, but over that course of this, in particular the last 6 years, how have you noticed the politicians changing in terms of the way they're interacting with media, with you? I mean, are they becoming more or less evasive, or are you having to learn new tricks?
No, you know what really gets my tit is the press secretaries. Like, I remember back in the day, and it wasn't that long ago. I mean, I started working in the gallery 20-ish years ago, right? Where I don't feel like there were press secretaries everywhere. I might be imagining it. But now, okay, so I used to be able to just call them on their landline. Now, have you ever tried to get through to a press secretary on their landline? You call the switchboard at Parliament. You say, I want to speak to the press secretary in Minister X's office. They go, do they know you're calling? I'm like, no, they don't. I'm a member of the media. They are the press secretary. It's literally their job to field my call. I'm just going to I'll put you through to reception at the office. And you're like, it is becoming so difficult. It's becoming so difficult just to get through to somebody to ask a question in the first place. And then when you get there, and the police are the worst for this, when you get through, they go, can you pop that in an email? I'm like, have you lost your ability to write? I've just verbally told you what I need, and it's not long, but now you need to put it in an email. Oh, it gets on my tits so badly.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of exchange now over email and a lot of the PR, particularly the government PR
They are putting
department.
obstacles in our path to be able to do our job. And I am starting to get to the point, Shane, where I am giving them fair warning and I'm giving them fair opportunity. And I'm sorry, if you do not respond to me by deadline, if you make it too difficult, if you just obfuscate, you avoid me, you try not to get back to me, you actually are setting yourself for me just to give you a serve on air. And so it won't be necessarily like I'm not coming after the minister necessarily, but if they haven't provided the necessary information, I say, okay, this is what I understand to be the case, can you clarify? And they just ignore that. That goes on air because you had your opportunity. So I feel like my tolerance, and I suspect other people's tolerance for their game playing and obstacles and all that stuff it's drawing to a close. Like, I think that kind of what we perceived in the past to be fairness is now kind of diminishing.
Yeah, so I mean, let's take it then to the actual politicians. I mean, are they, when they are on air with you, I mean, are they more practiced now than they once were, or are
Look,
they...
I mean, you're asking me to compare me at 41 with my experience at 23, let's say, and I don't know that I don't know that I was mature enough then to really know what I'm comparing. Do you know what I mean? So I can't really make that comparison for you. But what I can say is what I've thought recently is these guys are trying. They try to master the art of saying a lot of things without saying anything at all. That is wearing thin on the audience. A radio audience is an audience that is often, I mean, some people are kind of half listening while they're cooking, but a lot of people are sitting in their cars at drive time and they are giving you their sole focus apart from driving, right? So if you're not answering the question, they are listening intently enough to know that. I feel like politicians need to factor that in now, that the days of kind of filling the space. If a journalist, if an interviewer is going to try to figure something out and looking for some information, you're going to have to give them something. You cannot just keep dead batting it because the audience knows, and then you look shady and evasive.
Well, I think we saw that very clearly as well with the Prime Minister's interview recently around Andrew Bailey with hosting.
Yeah, case in point.
Where he said wouldn't come out very clearly and talk about, that he would have sacked him if he hadn't resigned.
Yes, and I mean, look, let's also think about the fact that this is part of this kind of nonsense and game playing that goes on with press secretaries and politicians trying to avoid answering questions and stuff, leads to or has led to Trump being elected in the States, because he is the opposite, right? The guy overtalks. He shares too much information. You know the inner workings of his mind, and it's kind of freaky, but at least you know what you're dealing with. And almost hearing his stupidity out loud is comforting, because there's something comforting about knowing the quantity of the stupid versus, let's say, Hillary Clinton kind of guessing at what she's up to, not really knowing her motivations. I'd rather have stupid than shady. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like that is why he got elected.
Rather have stupid than shady, yeah. That brings us on to David Seymour. We recently did a story. It's been widely reported that David Seymour now has a series on YouTube called David Seymour versus the media, or David versus the media, where he's now bringing along his own social media person to interviews, filming them, posting them unedited.
I love the one you wrote about the other day with John Campbell.
With John Campbell, yeah. What do you think of that tactic?
Smart. Why not?
So does
keep us honest. Well, I say us. I don't do that kind of nonsense anymore.
Well, of course, most of your interviews are live, right?
Yeah.
So we're hearing the
unedited
and raw footage anyway. But do the politicians have appointed all that in the past, where TV news or a print or a text-based piece of journalism is unfairly edited?
Yes, of course. And I've been that journalist as well. I've been the young journalist who's cut something together, probably on reflection, knowing that it wasn't entirely fair to the person, or fair at all, actually. And I've done it because it fits the narrative. It fits my narrative, or it fits the narrative that's out there, or whatever. I don't really know why we do this as the media. I can't explain it, but it is absolutely happening. And I think that the politicians are absolutely entitled to do what he's doing. Because if it's getting edited down to be unfair to them, then, they may as well call it out.
I listened to another recent podcast you did where you talked about understanding your sword, the power and the influence that you have. Has that dawned on you over the past 6 years, particularly with the Drive show and post-COVID?
Yeah, I think so. I think because of the jeopardy in COVID, it sort of made it, and there are times where you can see in real time a government responding to what's on air on our show. So, for example, an example of this just in the last few days was, I think it might have been Thursday last week, we were talking about planned fringe benefit taxes. The Prime Minister's office, it was being led by Simon Watts, I think the Revenue Minister. It was being led by him. The Prime Minister's office wasn't aware of it. They heard it on our show. They put a stop to it, literally halfway through our show. So you can sort of hear, you can see it happening. And the more that happens, the more you become aware of, actually, not in a kind of power crazed way, like, oh, we've got these power, but actually in a way that you have to be responsible with what it is that you say and do. I've made mistakes in the past where I've not been responsible with what I've said and done, not really understood the impact of the information that we convey. So I think it's just a maturation, like I'm just maturing in the job and understanding. You've got to be a bit of a grown-up about this stuff.
It also gives a lie, though, doesn't it, to this theory that mainstream media is dead?
Yes.
So
I don't think mainstream media is dead. Mainstream media is severely injured.
Yeah, I think, there's a debate about, obviously the business models are severely kind of challenged in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Audiences, though, have actually never been stronger. Take your ratings, for instance. I mean, you're at a ratings high.
Yes.
And so why do you think that narrative continues to be played out, that mainstream media is suffering, or that no one's tuning in anymore?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's because we're looking at some examples where audiences are falling away quite sharply, and I'm thinking about, for example, television news.
6 o'clock news.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
And when you see that happen, maybe we extrapolate that across the whole of the media ecosystem, and that's not fair, and it's actually a TV problem at the moment. I mean, print's had its problems at times. I'm sure radio will have problems in some stages. It can't all be boom cycles, but I think it's probably more of a TV story.
Yeah, and the TV one's interesting as well, because they will argue, and TVNZ does argue very strongly, that the 6 o'clock news, while people might not be sitting down on the couch at that particular time, still has a big audience once you take terrestrial and streaming numbers into account. So
I call absolute BS on that. I am the only person in my team who watches the evening news. So my executive producer doesn't watch it. Neither of the setup producers watch it. And I think, and there was a day where they would have. So I think it is a story that the TV guys keep on trying to spin to us, that there is an audience that's holding. There are some people who watch through habit. There are some people, especially in rural New Zealand and provincial New Zealand, who watch. Absolutely, I'm sure of that. But come on, it is declining, and at a rate of knots as well.
Well, you, of course, had your own time at both TVNZ and TV3, and now fully entrenched in radio with screen time, though, as well. What are the differences for you, between TV and radio as a broadcaster? I mean, do you much prefer the radio medium?
Oh, yeah. I mean, because can you imagine, right? So if what you've grown up is you've grown up watching The West Wing, and it's all this fast-paced kind of interesting political stuff that's going on, and then and you just imagine that it's going to be some sort of like a rolling coverage TV situation where you sit there and it's a 30-minute show, half of which is ads, right? So you've got about 15 minutes on air, and it's completely scripted. Everything is scripted, and you're the host, right? Between the packages, which are 4, 5, 6 minutes long, or whatever it is, 3 minutes, I don't really know. You've got probably 1 minute at the top, 1 minute at the end before the ad break. So all in all, what a presenter does is minuscule, and it's very constrained. There's no fun in that at all. Whereas with what we're doing in radio, I mean, we talk. That show is 3 hours long. I would more than half of it is on air time versus ads, and so you are talking a lot, and it's rolling, and there are phone calls dropping out, and you're having to talk about, and then you're on air, and there's missiles going over, and all, and you know what I mean. So the actual, if what I was looking for in TV was the impression that I'd had as a young girl, that it would be this fast-paced, interesting thing where events are unfolding. You actually find that in radio. You don't find it in TV.
But you define your time on TV as well. You were a journalist as well as a presenter.
Yes.
Did you enjoy the journalism side of it much more strongly?
Yeah, I think so on reflection. I mean, you all want to be presenters when you start out as journos, but actually journos are the fun. That's really where the fun is, because you go out and you meet the people, and you meet the gang members, and you go to the crashes, and you go to the disasters, go to the earthquake and stuff, so you get to actually experience it. Whereas quite sanitized as a presenter, you're just really sitting in the studio, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I mean.
And do you know how much time you have to spend getting your face put on? Shane.
Well, we don't do that here for the Media Insider podcast,
no,
I can tell you.
No,
as you can tell.
I put my eyeliner on in the basement, literally. You spend, I think I spent an hour and a half in the makeup chair for hair and makeup for a 30-minute show. That always struck me as bizarre. I was like, this is ask about face.
Well, it's quite telling, isn't it, around the kind of the cost-based for TV, and not just. I mean, that's one example. The high-end production, the cameras, the studio use, and that sort of thing. I mean, nowadays, all media companies, now that we're converged, I mean, we're doing it all. A lot of journalists are working on their iPhones for video. Yep. And so it's challenged the traditional TV business model, as we've talked about.
But nothing challenges the beauty norms. You still got to put your face on.
Just before we move away from TV, keen to touch on Story and your time there. I know it was 10 years ago now. Does it seem like 10 years ago that you were there? Does it seem longer?
Yes and no. Lord, I've packed a lot into those 10 years. But yeah, I mean, sometimes, you know what it's like. You reflect back and you go, holy, it was 10 years ago. That's a long time ago. But actually, lots has happened since.
That was a high-profile departure, I guess, or closure of a show. What are your memories of that time?
Pretty clear. It was tough. It was really, really hard. I mean, look, losing your job is hard for anybody, right? Because your identity is... So I read somewhere, and I've said this before, I read somewhere that losing your job is harder than losing a partner, a life partner, because at least with a life partner, you can kind of blame them for being a dick. But
you mean like a marriage or
something? Like a marriage or a de facto relationship or a girlfriend or a boyfriend, whatever. But if you lose your job, that's all on you. Right? Because you didn't perform to that standard. So there's a big grieving that happens. Fortunately, I have women's intuition because I'm a woman. So I saw it coming a mile off. Like, I remember going home one day and saying to my husband, this show is ending at the end of this year. No, you guys are great, no. And I was like, mate, you don't know what you're talking about. It's body language, it's the way people are talking to each other. It was just so abundantly clear it was going to end. So I kind of had a long time to pre-grieve before it happened and get all my ducks in a row. But it was tough. Yeah, it was really, really hard.
Because you're in the limelight. A lot of people that
and then
lose
it
their
makes
jobs.
it worse, yeah, because then you go. Because I remember going to my mum's house for a Christmas function, and her husband's kids were there, so they were essentially my step siblings. And one of them said something, and I just said, "I don't want any of your pity," and I slammed my cutlery down and stormed out. And I was like, he was just trying to be nice. Do you know what I mean? But it had cut me so deeply, yeah. And been public.
Of course, in the last 10 years as well, just in the last 3 to 4 years, you've become a mum.
Yeah.
Has that changed for you, the approach to the
God.
job?
Oh, does it? Oh, you know, because you've got 5 stepkids, right? It changes everything, doesn't it? It changes everything. Work-wise, you have to work faster. You have to work smarter. You cannot dawdle. You just have to get that shit done. Do you know what I mean? And get it done fast and then move on. And you can't beat yourself up if it doesn't go well because you ain't got the time for that. And then you also have to think about, you have to really... I really don't want the kids to see me with my phone all the time, right? So I don't do it. It's when they're at kindy or when little one's sleeping, I get the phone out, do my work. Or if I really have to, during the day, I will say, Mummy's doing some work on the phone so that they understand what's going on. So you constantly just trying to, because they're the most important things. So you're trying to figure out, but you also can't just do them and not work because how else are they going to eat? So you have to kind of balance this the whole time. But I'm really lucky to be a working mum because I'll tell you what, Shane, if I had to stay at home with kids all day, I would go mad.
Yeah,
they are so intense and hard work.
Yeah. Has it changed your approach to the job here in terms of the topics you're chasing or the way that you're questioning people?
Yeah, it's changed what I'm interested in, right? So I am interested, I'm obsessed currently with our need to regulate how kids are using social media. And I don't think a lot of people understand how detrimental this is to them. I put it there with ciggies and liquor. We've introduced age limits for when you can smoke a pack of fags and when you can hit the booze. I think we need to take the same approach with social media. That is informed by being a mum. I'm don't even get me started on the breast is best Nazis because honestly, they are top of my list of people who can actually just bugger off. That also, anything to do with the formula debate between ourselves and Australia, I'm obsessed with because I'm a mum. So yeah, it totally changes what I'm interested in. Yeah. It also gives me a bit more compassion, I think, towards other people and what they are balancing. I often think about Nicola Willis. How on earth does she do what she's doing? She's got 4 kids and pulling extremely long hours. Chris Bishop. Part of the reason why Chris Bishop ended up making a tit of himself the other day was because I think that he, I think the booze went to his head because he just sat in my studio that day saying that he had pulled 3 nights of getting into bed at 1, getting up at 5 and his kids are about the same age as mine and being a dad of 2 babies. He was
ready to partay.
He was ready to partay and when he had 1/2 a beer, he was there. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like I have some compassion for people because I just think you don't know what they're balancing at home. It's tough.
Yeah. Jacinda Ardern, of course, had Neve.
So triggering. So triggering. I'm reading her book at the moment, by the way.
Can I ask if you'd read it?
And I don't hate it. I'm really enjoying it. She's a fantastic writer. It would have been great if she'd stuck to that, actually. That was her career path that she should have taken because she's really, really good at it. Anyway, so in reading her book, I can't remember, what was your question?
So just what she was like as an interviewee.
So in reading her book, what you realise about her, if you didn't already realise this, is that she is a very fragile person. Like, she is not, she's the kind of kid, she's got a big heart, she's got the kind of kid who would have very easily been burst into tears in the school ground, or, you know, that's the impression you get. It's just like, you can see those kids, they're just soft, they're gentle kids, right? That is what she's like. And I think that her approach to people like myself, who would have been much more likely to be the bullies and the runarounds and the energetic ones, it was to just stay away from them, right? And that's what she did on the radio. When I was the Wellington host for that 9 to midday show, when John Key was there, he would come in once a quarter, and so 4 times a year, and he would take talkback calls for an hour. She never did it, not once. The minute she became Prime Minister.
You asked her to do it.
We just assumed. We assumed that it would just roll over like it had rolled over for John Key and rolled over from John Key to Bill English, and we just assumed it would roll over to Jacinda, because this is an audience you want to win, right? And this is like a heartland of New Zealand as talkback callers, right? That you need them if you want to win an election. Wouldn't come in. Gave us a 15, 20-minute interview that we had to do while she was driving, and then we got bawled out by Mike Jaspers, her press secretary, because it had gone overtime, even though that is exactly what we'd agreed to. And it was just so hostile from the outset, and there was no reason for it to be hostile, because all I'd written about Jacinda at that stage was flattering in terms of columns, right? I thought she was amazing, falling pregnant while being a Prime Minister. So there was no personal antipathy towards me. And I'd emceed an event that she was at, and we'd had a panel, blah, blah, blah. So we had a perfectly fine working relationship. After that, that was the turning point for me. I was just like, if you cannot come on this show and man up, you're in the big boy job now. If you cannot be a big boy Prime Minister, then I'm starting to lose respect for you. And it was just downhill from there. And never came on the show that I can recall. I'm happy to be proven wrong. I don't think she ever came on the show. And that just continued all the way through, right? Then there was the News Hub, the Nation cancellations, Q&A cancellations, wouldn't do those interviews, wouldn't do Hosking, and it just became a rolling theme. Happy to sit down with Vogue, though, because it was easy.
What about Luxon? What's he been like as an interviewee?
Do
you get straight answers out of him?
No, not at all. He's much happier to front up, but and I know the press gallery have had some issues with him cancelling some of the access that they have to him. They do have a lot of access to him, though. But no, he's too evasive and tries too hard to kind of get around without a straight answer. He doesn't want to be pinned down on things, and I just don't think it's a good. It may have been a strategy 20 years ago, but as I say, the audiences are too clued on, and the time is too critical at the moment, right? There's so much jeopardy in the world. People just want. I think people want a strong leader who knows their mind, even if it's stupid like Donald Trump, knows their mind and is prepared to back themselves on it. You know, that you just want kind of some certainty. Yeah. He's too all over the show. He just needs to, you know.
Did politics ever interest you? I know you obviously studied political science, and your love of politics has been very well reported. Did entering politics ever come across your radar? Maybe
briefly, but not in any kind of serious way, no.
Yeah.
I think it just looks like a really hard job, doesn't it? And it all too often ends with people just hating the experience or being driven out. Like, remember the David Benson Pope stuff where he was left twitching because he'd been bullied so badly by Duncan Garner, and physically his eye was twitching. I just looked at that and I thought that's just too hard. It's too hard. And I'm not even sure that he deserved it. Do you know what I mean? For what he'd done.
Yeah. You've said previously that if you want to be liked as a broadcaster, that would be the worst kind of trait to have. Do you have a thick skin?
Oh, to be liked.
Yeah, to be liked. I mean, it's. Do you have a thick skin? I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah, I do, I think.
Do you look at social media comments about
yourself?
No,
I don't know.
Like but I guess it comes back to that point of when you get behind that microphone, you're you. You're not trying to please anybody, I guess, or try to be anyone.
Not really, different. No. But I mean, I think I'm kind of blessed in that is my personality in any case, right? Like, I think we all want to be to some extent liked, but some people want to be. Some people are. My little brother, who's a gorgeous human being, wants everybody to love him. So he really feeds on people liking him. So I can see the contrast between he and I. And sometimes it gets a bit out of hand with me, where I forget that I have to be kind to people, and I have to be quite rude. Do you know what I mean? Because I actually really don't care. But that is quite handy for when you're broadcasting, because because the truth of the matter is half the audience loves you, half the audience hates you. So you have to be able to kind of accept that. Yeah.
And it also comes down to your topic selection as well, I guess. I understand, I've talked to producers leading up to today's chat who say you are very open to being challenged and wanting to hear ideas.
Did you do research on me?
Of course.
Of course you did. Oh, yeah? What did they say?
But you've got a couple of producers there who perhaps don't share the same politics.
Did you talk to Sam?
No.
Did you talk to Ants?
Stop it. Never reveal the sources.
All three of them share different politics. All three of them are quite
But that
diverse.
must lead to proper, decent conversations in terms of, the questions that you'll ask.
Yeah, well,
during the
because
show
don't you think
and
the
your
worst thing that you can do is get into your own echo chamber? Like if you're a Green voter, you should not hang out with Green people. I mean, hang out with some of them by all means and sharpen your thoughts and stuff, but make sure you're hanging out with some ACT Party supporters as well. And the reverse is true. And I think if you're in your own echo chamber, all that you end up doing is just your argument. I can hear people who are in their own echo chamber because they don't even bother to explain their argument because they just assume that everybody agrees because everybody in their life does agree, right?
We touched on this a little bit earlier, but what's next for you?
What, like now? Got an editorial meeting.
I'm thinking more strategic. I know, and I'm holding you up from your daily editorial meeting. But we'll get there shortly. But in terms of, we talked about breakfast, but is there anything else in media or broadcasting or journalism that kind of appeals to you?
That's a really good question. Like I said, at the moment, I don't have time to think about including anything else. It's just kids under 3 are just just really busy. Like I'm just excited if I get out for a night, to go see Marlon Williams or something like that. So I don't really have anything. And also we have a declining media landscape. So Shane, tell me this. What job is better than the job I have? Let me tell you something. When I was still working in the press gallery at TVNZ, I said to myself, if I can just get Larry Williams' show one day, that is all I want, right? I just want that show. So I've already got the show that I wanted. I've already achieved my goal, which is I looked at it as a young person and went, that is the job that I want. So I've got the job. So I'm not ungrateful for it. And I actually kick myself every day and am grateful for it. I have to do Hosking's show in 2 weeks. I'm shitting myself.
Well, you did it. You've done it before.
I have, but now I've got a 5-month-old and I've got a 3-year-old who will be on kindy break because it's school holidays. So how the hell am I going to do that?
Well, that's where Barry steps in, right?
No, thoughts and prayers to the man because he's going to be feeding both those guys breakfast by himself, and one of them treats solids in her mouth like you have just put sand in there. She's like, what is that? So it's quite a time. Mornings are quite a time. Mornings and night times with kids are quite a time, and he's going to be holding it down till 9 a.m. So, he's pretty good. But to answer your question, dude, I just got my hands full at the minute. Can you ask me in a year?
Yeah. Certainly looking forward to catching up again soon, Heather. Thanks for joining us on the Media Insider podcast. Don't miss my weekly Friday column on nzherald.co.nz and in print in the Weekend Herald every Saturday. I'll catch you next week.